Hi, this is Eric Abecassis. I'm the founder and CEO of HumanGo, and this is the Greg Bennett Show.
Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and this was an incredibly insightful conversation with the CEO and founder of HumanGo.AI with Eric Abecassis. This was just absolutely an amazing conversation where we talk AI, tech, sports, and triathlon. Absolutely loved it. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. All right, today's guest is a world leader at the crossroads of technology and sport. From being a software engineer to pioneering a digital shift in sports training through AI, he's done it all. As the founder and CEO of HumanGo.AI, that's HumanGo.AI. He's transformed the way athletes train, leveraging cutting-edge artificial intelligence. His recent venture with human-powered health promises to further revolutionize how he perceives exercise as a tool for just overall well-being. I'm excited to dive deep into the world of sports, technology, triathlon, and AI, and potentially a lot more. So without further ado, welcome, and thank you for joining me on The Greg Bennett Show. Eric Abecassis, how are you, mate?
Hi, Greg. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. Another great day in Colorado here.
Yes, you've just recently moved to Boulder the last few years, right?
That's correct. Yeah, 5 years in paradise, so I can't get enough of it.
Well, I don't know if you know, but we were there for about 15 years, and we actually left there in 2021, mainly because we've got a young family. We want to be near my wife's family down here in Florida. But yeah, Boulder, Colorado, it's a pretty outstanding place. You been out for a run or a bike this morning?
I've been for a run yesterday. I'm in the taper right now for my next race, so just taking it easy, going easy for the next few days until race day.
What do you got? What do you got coming up?
Mont Tremblant will be one of the unfortunate happy few that will run this course for the last time, as they are stopping the full distance. But I will be in Mont Tremblant in 10 days to race.
Oh, very good. I think this episode should come out the day after you do race, so we'll have an idea how you went. How's the prep going? Has it been going well?
I think it has been going well. Yeah, I believe that I'm probably in the best shape ever. So hopefully everything will stay that way for race day. We'll see.
Oh, very good, mate. I love it. And Boulder, so you moved to Boulder. Obviously, we know it as an endurance hub. It's a great place for athletes to train. There's all the support network in terms of bodywork people and great nutrition and all of that. But is it building as a bit of a tech hub as well? Is that a reason to be there?
I mean, the reason to be there, and my wife still does not believe me, was really just because it was close to mountains. I didn't know about all these endurance things before actually deciding to move to Boulder. Yeah. But yes, indeed, it is such a tech hub. I mean, you have all the main companies, whether it is Apple, Google, Amazon. I mean, all of them are in the surrounding of Boulder and somewhere between Boulder and Denver. So it's a really great place on the technology side to be.
Love it. Well, before we dive into the tech part of the show and discussing HumanGo, I want to just get a little bit of an idea of your sort of progression into endurance sports, with the triathloning and marathoning. And when did you sort of first discover this part of your life?
Yeah, so the reality is that when I was young, I mean, going as a teenager and later, I was not in sport at all. I was very much nerdy. I was interested in science. Yeah. I was interested in literature, somewhat in art, but sport was just not part of my world. So for the context of this episode, and I think talking about AI, I mean, when I was 15, I read all the Asimov robot series. I was a great fan of Philip K. Dick, and if some of you know, the Does Android Dreams of Electric Sheep, which was the story that inspired Blade Runner. And I was in love with Marvin, the paranoid android from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, all of that is really from the 70s, and they were all talking about AI and artificial intelligence, and that's something that just fascinated me. And I was, I was playing with coding, and that was back in 78, 79.
Wow.
So it was a long time
Yeah,
ago
wow.
before a computer went
Yeah.
mainstream. But I was lucky enough to have access to computer, learn programming when I was really 11, 12. Writing my first program when I was 13. And so that's really the background was not at sport at all. And I went naturally into computer science, graduated with a PhD in the early 90s. And the only connection with sport was, being a pathetic tennis player, maybe, a decent ski descender. But running, I did that once before I was 30. And
Wow.
that was a very strange experience at the time. And then I met my wife, and she was casually running. So I picked it up and said, okay, maybe once a week I can run with her. And we went on some runs. We were living in the south of France, which is beautiful. You run in the middle of nature, fragrance of the plants, aromatic plants around you, the snow cap of the Alps was quite beautiful. And all of that was just staying there until I was probably 2005, I think, 2004, 2005. I was just searching on internet for some random stuff, interesting stuff. And I heard about this ultra distance running. And that just hit a button for me. I was really like hearing a voice. This is what I want to do. And I had no clue, but this is what I want to do. And then I registered for a 60K run in the Alps, which was my first serious race. And I finished almost crawling. Actually pretty much crawling the last 100 yards. But that was not enough to deter me. So I signed up for 100K 2 months later. Took me like more than 20 hours to complete. But that was a complete life changing. And that really was the start. And from that point on, I was completely hooked to endurance sport. And it's later in 2010 that a friend told me about crazy stuff called Ironman and triathlon. I've heard of it vaguely. So I decided to follow him, and we signed up both for Nice Ironman. So I just went to find the local master swim to learn how to swim because I didn't really know.
How old were you in 2010? Forgive me for asking, but I'm just curious when you were learning to swim.
I was 43.
Okay.
At that time.
Good man.
And then bought a bike. So I went to REI and a couple of other shops to buy a basic road bike to start riding. And before that, I didn't have a bike at home. So only for the kids.
Yeah.
And that's really how it started. And then it's really the friendship. My training buddies, when I was back in France at the time, I trained with Poissy Triathlon, and I met some fantastic people that are lifelong friends now. I moved back to Houston and found some great people there also with a triathlon club. So the friendship is really what brought me to triathlon over and above the running and ultra running where I really started. So that's really where that started. And I was hooked from that point.
I'm with you. I don't know. My career in triathlon was a little earlier in sort of the mid 80s. And it really was the people. I say to people, I like swimming, biking and running, but I don't love it. What I love is the people. And what I love is, the ambitious side of me loves to try and win races, but I love the people. And that was largely why I even started this podcast 3.5, 4 years ago, was because I just love the conversations with people in the endurance triathlon space. So I get it. And that's what a journey that is. I love the thing that's sticking with me is that you were coding in the late 70s. I think that's incredible. I just think that you've been in this space for so long. I'm really looking forward in this conversation to sort of diving into, what is AI and what is HumanGo and everything else. So let's get cracking. I want to firstly ask the big question, and that is, what is HumanGo, and what was the sort of primary catalyst behind its creation?
Yeah, so from a professional career standpoint, so I was moving. The first part of my career was very technical, very hands-on in the coding world. And then I started to turn to more management and executive type of jobs as I was growing. I was working for a big Fortune 500 company. And that change from being technical to becoming manager of bigger and bigger teams happened at the same time as I discovered sport. And what I experienced was how much it was bringing me in my life. So it was something that completely changed the course of my life. And the more I was taking on more stressful jobs, and the more I was actually cool and easy because I think of the sport was helping me. So it was one aspect is I really wanted to bring that to more people and be able to help more people to start on the path. That was definitely a big element. The other kind of what I will call the initial spark for HumanGo was 2018. So I went in that journey of running and triathlon. It was my second qualification for Kona. I was excited about it, and I've been training really hard with coaches for a few years at that point. But I was still commuting from Boulder to Houston, and that was really putting a lot of stress on my body.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's just an excuse for poor performance or was reality, but the fact that I crashed on Kona, being completely overtrained, I crashed with fatigue. I bonked completely, and it was a pathetic race, probably one of my worst race ever. I thought, okay, there must be something that we can do to help people understand the path and how to train better, and using what I've been using in my professional career and I've been passionate about since my youth around artificial intelligence, and let's see how that could work. And it just happened that at the same time in the company I was working for, we were working on how to equip the geoscientists to understand subsurface data. And before, they were just managing data and graphs and were slicing and dicing through data. And we moved that to start bringing to them prediction tools, insight, how to transform data into insight, knowledge, and actions. And that was completely transforming. And I thought, okay, if we can do that the same for sports science and human performance, that would be beautiful. How can I translate all this data? We have plenty of data, but how can I translate this data into something that can tell me what to do? And that's really was the initial spark for HumanGo.
I love it, and it's great to have someone like yourself, a pioneer in a passion for endurance sports, but also a very good understanding of this predictive machine learning tool of AI. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm curious. It's one thing to have an idea. I think I've got about 5 business plans going right now. What have been some of the challenges that you've faced in basically turning this vision into an actual tangible product, which you've done with reasonable speed, I might add, from an idea to getting going?
Yeah, that has been a very challenging journey indeed, where you have to rethink yourself completely. I mean, I was living a well-paid job, an environment where I knew everybody and everybody knew me. It was very comfortable, and I had to jump into this unknown path. So it was a lot of, I would say, a lot of hard work. But in that hard work, I was really blessed to have people around me that really helped me on that path in an incredible way. And that started by really the people that I had around me at the time, so people who were working with me that really helped me a long way to get me started. I had to go back to coding. I stopped coding for about 25 years. There was a small gap that I had to fill. And but I found a lot of people to support me and help me to put me on the right track. I met incredible people along the way that joined me in this adventure because I think they've shared the passion and felt that we were capable of doing something that can transform how people are handling endurance sport. So that was really, I mean, I was blessed. I was blessed with people that helped me financially. I mean, it was also having the people that can help you getting started also from the financial side. And all of that, I think really happen randomly in some ways. I mean, it's hard for me to see any pattern there.
Yeah.
It was really just embracing the fact that the best thing can happen. And if you're open enough to the best thing, then those things will happen, or enough of them will happen, I would say, that you can keep going. And that's, I mean, so it's a lot of hard work. The team really worked hard to build that alongside with what I was doing and what I was bringing there. So yeah, I mean, it was a very, very interesting and transformative journey. I mean, sport, I say, was a first transformation in my life. It was when I really moved from just being an intellectual, technical person to focus on my body. That was really this experience of building this company was rethinking who I am as a person and how I connect with other people and how I connect with random events that could happen to anyone, and how, if you are open enough to receive what life can send to you, I mean, beautiful things can happen.
I love that you threw yourself into the trenches, you know, that you were the engineering team. I think to, you know, for anybody listening and wanting to start a business, it really is about just getting in there and getting dirty. And you went straight in there and found and outsourced friends to help you go back to coding, which is quite incredible. So how long did it take you from, you know, writing your first line of code or coming up with the very start to finding that minimal viable product, or what we term the MVP in the sort of the tech space?
Yeah, I see you're familiar with the term. It was much longer than I was hoping for when I started, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the fallacy of thinking that you can do things very quickly, and it turns out to take time. I mean, it took us really, I will say, 2 years before we got something that was capable of generating good enough plan in enough situation that we believe, okay, now we really have something that we can start to market. And it was early. I mean, even 2 years was still very much crashing in many ways.
Yes, but it's better to launch and learn than to never launch at all, you know?
Exactly. It's an iterative process. And if you try, it's very hard to try to address all the complexity up front and thinking that you can solve all the different elements of parameters complexity that you're dealing with in one shot.
Yes.
So if you iterate on it, and that's true for the company, that's true for the technology, that's true for software, it gives you a chance of learning, and now you start from a more stable base. What was complexity turned into knowledge, and now you can understand the missing gap and address that next missing gap.
Yeah. Hey, I'm curious though, you know, you started working on this before OpenAI released their, you know, ChatGPT, and we're seeing hundreds of, you know, third-party apps being every day coming out onto the market since, well, what was it, October last year. But you were already working on this prior to all of that, right?
Yeah, so we started, I mean, the origin of the idea was really in 2018, as I mentioned. It was very exploring and trying to find our way. I think in 1920, we started to land on an approach. Now, AI is a broad field, and I think what made an impact with ChatGPT is how people started to perceive how it could have an impact in their life. I think before it was very abstract, and ChatGPT was the first time that now you start to interact with an AI in a way that seems to be almost natural, and that is very much changing the game. I mean, it's a absolutely phenomenal milestone for all the good and the bad that it contains. So I think that it is challenging as a civilization, but it also has a huge potential.
Well, before we jump into, I'm going to do two things here. One, I want to talk about explaining what HumanGo is for our listeners that are unfamiliar with it. But then after that, I want to just talk about what is AI. But let's talk about HumanGo first, because this is fascinating what you've been putting the last several years into with your team. It really is an amazing product. Tell us more about what is HumanGo in a nutshell.
Yeah, so at its core, what HumanGo does is really delivering individualized and adaptive training plans. So from the user standpoint, you set your goals, you set your availability, you set your fitness, either from historical data or from an estimate. If you don't have historical data, you set your threshold, or you let the system guess it from past data. And then Hugo or AI will generate the plan. Now, what's really interesting is when you look a little deeper into it, how things are happening, without disclosing too many secrets here. But so you set your race goals, and Hugo is going to generate a periodized training. And each phase in your training, whether it is a base, build, taper, and so on, is associated with the race it's targeting and define a training strategy. Mm-hmm. So that's sport distribution, if it's a single sport or multi-sport, energy distribution, how we're going to hit the different energy subsystem and stimulate that, typical duration of workout, typical category of workout, but actually no workouts itself. We're really defining a strategy there, mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then you have the ability in the system to set your availability all the way down to, on Tuesday, I want a run session, but I want maximum 45 minutes or an hour. So you can specify each day which sport you can practice, how much time do you have, mm-hmm. and you can do that as a routine level. That's my typical week, and you can do that as exceptional event, like I'm traveling, I'm with my family, I have some work commitment, or I have an injury, and that will adjust. You can tell the system how many run, bike, swim you want, how many hours you want to train per week. Of course, it will provide you feedback if you're in the right ballpark based on your goal. I mean, if you do one bike, one swim, one strength, one run for an Ironman, that might be a little short.
It's going to say, hey, mate, you're in trouble. Yeah.
But it's providing you some feedback and guidance, but you can still configure. I mean, whether you want 4 run or 3 run, whether for a certain block you want to go down to 2 run and focus on the swim, those things that you can tell the system. Mm-hmm. And then it is using coach science. Hugo knows certain rules of do's and don'ts on how to build a plan. And then it will use your fitness to understand how to push you enough, but not too much, when it's time to recover and give you a break. Mm-hmm. And then it's also understanding what you have done. Could that be different from the plan? And often it is. I mean, life gets in the way and you do things a little bit different. Or what you're planning to do if you want to go on this ride with your buddies on Saturday instead of what your coach is telling you. Mm. And that's the beauty. It takes all these elements and really generate a training plan that will fit all these constraints. And that's what the AI is doing, is searching within the space of possible solution. What is a really good plan that will meet all these criteria? Your goal, your training strategy, your availability, meeting what you've done and what you're planning to do, and coach fitness science, let's say, to build a plan. That's really where the essence of HumanGo is. That's what we're really doing I believe in a different way from what has been done so far. And for recreational athletes, that's a huge benefit, because now they control their plan. They control the fact that when they are off track, they can go back on track, because the plan will recalculate and readjust. Like, it's rebuilding an entirely customized plan for you if there is a deviation from what was the original plan.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have so many questions right now. Firstly, congrats. It's amazing. I love it. I love the idea and the concept, and that it's actually to the point that it's a physical thing that any of us can download. When you've laid out your plan and you're on your way, the inputs that you want to have along the way, is it able to collect data, say, from your Whoop or your Oura Ring or your Garmin in terms of getting a sense of what's working or not working? Or is the input, how I guess is the question, what kind of input does a person have along the way?
So you're able to provide indeed health data from your Whoop or Oura Ring or Garmin, and that will be integrated into assessment of fatigue that goes along the way. There is a qualitative feedback that you can provide on a daily basis, or how do you feel in the morning or after an activity, and that will have an impact on how to readjust the plan or add some recovery time if it seems that you're pushing and you're hitting the fatigue too much. This is the main thing that we are doing today, because one of the challenge and that we faced that when we started is, how can I predict performance before you actually deliver it? And that is a very interesting problem and a very complex problem. When I started running, people were looking at the way I was running once a week and saying, "Oh, maybe it seems to be running pretty well. I mean, maybe you can do quite good." And it turns out that on my second marathon, I was able to reach the 3 hours target. But there was no way to really predict that until I do it, because the body is a very complex machine, and how can I detect that? So what we're trying to do in the plan is to keep you on your toes based on a certain coaching strategy, while still being a little conservative. There are ways you can dial that up if you really want to be more aggressive with yourself. Typically, we're trying to be a little conservative, but within this conservative approach, we're trying to push you to get the right training, stimulate the different training zones and so on, and monitor when you are reaching a point where a break that might not have been planned for is probably required to give you time for recovering and readjusting. And we all know that you're improving when you're recovering, not when you're training. So this is really the focus of what we're doing. Yeah. In the future, there will be continuous improvement where we will account for more and more information. But I think it's already putting the people in a very good track.
Yes.
If they are setting the right context. I mean, not the one run, one bike for preparing for the Ironman, which obviously they will get feedback that it's not.
I mean,
looking good.
I can see the future for you. I mean, there's so many ways it can go, from collecting all forms of health data, blood work and everything else, to even having a snapshot of your biomechanics and giving you feedback on run stride and everything else. I don't know how much of that you have or whatever, but I kind of think of a tool like this as, having the coach in your pocket type mentality, where it's always analyzing and giving you more feedback so it can help predict how you're going to perform. It really is incredible. And you mentioned Hugo, which I love as a name. I think, obviously short for HumanGo, but Hugo as your AI assistant. How much does having a Hugo, not just AI working, but a Hugo at the front, how much does that help the experience for a user?
So what we've observed very interestingly is how Hugo can start creating some level of accountability with someone who is not a human. So there would be no judgmental aspect involved in that. And that's very interesting to see how people are reacting to that. They want Hugo to be happy about what they're doing. And that is becoming a motivation. But in case Hugo is not happy, it's still not a person, so it's not too problematic. So, but it's kind of this fine line, and that's we found that quite quite interesting in how the people are reacting. Now, today, our implementation, and that's the trade-off of being early. So if we're early, it means that you're behind at some point. And when we started the first implementation of Hugo as a chatbot, we were using a technology that was very advanced at the time, 2-3 years ago, called Dialogflow from Google. And it turns out that it feels like antiquity now compared to what ChatGPT
it's
can
moving
do.
fast, right?
As you mentioned. So actually we'll have very soon a new Hugo coming that will use technology like ChatGPT to interact, to do the same thing, but in a more fluid way. So we hope that will add, but to the value prop that we are providing. But Hugo already is providing you feedback, analyzing all your data and your performance, and that is already creating this accountability loop that we've observed with people using HumanGo. So very interesting to observe.
It is interesting. I've played around with a few of the third-party apps out there. I think Pi is the most emotionally intelligent one I've sort of felt with, especially when you turn on her voice. I think my wife thinks I'm having some kind of affair as she listens to all my problems. But it's, even at Any Question, the company that I founded with my business partner, Ed Baker, and people that listen to the show know all about it. But, we've had to transition the company tremendously and focus on using AI. We now use AI to interview you, the creator, and it's opened up to everybody now to be a creator, and it's been fun using it in a way which collects, but you get asked a question, you just answer it via video and audio, and then it says, hey, that was a great answer. Here's another question you should consider, and then from that, it gives you all your social media posts. But anyway, that's the company we've been building. But it's been fascinating to implement these chatbots, which are becoming more and more, I'll say, emotionally intelligent rather than human. I think there's still a long way to go for the human side, but it's fascinating to watch. And I think this is a good place to segue a little bit over to sort of understanding what this technology is. And I think you're probably the best person I've ever had on this show to really explain what AI is. What is artificial intelligence? What does it mean? And then we can kind of talk about how we think it might be revolutionizing sport and other areas.
Yeah. So, we hear a lot about AI, and there's a lot of noise, a lot of blurring the lines between what traditional software development is and what AI is. And it is quite magical, but it's not yet a magic wand that can do everything. So in traditional software development, you basically write a set of instructions that in simplistic way will be executed one after the other. It's not exactly happening like that, but I think as a simplified view, that's enough. And so the computer or the CPU is really performing this task more or less in that sequence, and that leads to a result. So you basically give a recipe to the computer, and the computer executes the recipe, and you hope to have a good meal at the end. When you look at AI, AI is a set of tools where this time you don't tell the computer how to do things, but you basically describe the result, and you hope that this smart engine will figure the way to get there. So that's a fundamental change. It's really you are starting from data. So typically, yes, learning from data to understand how things are working. It will detect patterns, and from that, now when you tell what you want, it's gonna find the way to get there. So there are a number of AI algorithms that can be used, and each is really specialized in certain class of problem. The one we are hearing the most, because it was really a big milestone in AI, is machine learning. And it's not the same thing. There are more things in AI than machine learning, but machine learning is definitely a great tool in the toolbox. So machine learning is really a way to recognize a pattern from data and then be able to predict an outcome based on a certain number of input parameter. So if you train this machine learning to detect, let's say, for a simple thing, a power output from a certain number of parameters, like what pace are you going, and what velocity, acceleration you're putting, what's the slope, what's the rolling resistance. I mean, you can put as many parameters as you want, and it will give you some sort of prediction of what's the power without telling the system what's the formula to calculate the power from all these other elements. So that's at a high level. Now, I really would like to spend some time explaining some of the challenges with machine learning.
Yes.
So one of the challenges with machine learning is if you try to predict something that machine learning has never seen, it will fail in incredible ways that it feels so stupid. And it cannot explain why it reached that result. So you're going to get, for that condition, this rider should will produce a power output of 25,000 watts. And the machine will feel comfortable saying that because it has no clue that 25,000 watts is probably a little too much for what you can produce. Yeah. And that is because if we are trying to get some result on a range of data that have been never seen by the machine learning, it will make up a result. It will not admit that it doesn't know, so to speak. And that's one of the big challenges that we have with machine learning, is when we are going off track, it's becoming wild, and then it's can give you anything. The other element in the challenge of machine learning is to know what is the right set of parameters that you use, and how to know what's the truth. So to take an example, I mean, you can predict what's going to be your performance on this ride with all kind of training data. But if you had really a lot of stress at work or an argument at home, that might have a big impact in your performance. But unfortunately, that was not part of the equation. So then it will again fail. And I'm using extreme example, but it's something that it's going to be very difficult for the machine learning to, are we really predicting something? Or in fact, there are other parameters that are not included in the training that have a big impact on the result. And therefore, what we're doing is randomizer. We're predicting a random result based on presumable pattern, but in fact, there is no real pattern. But the machine learning will always think it finds a pattern, and that's a challenge. But and the last one is really that when we are inputting a lot of information in the ML to train, we can also bring some bias. So let's say you're a coach and you believe that the most important element in predicting performance is this or that. You will put that parameter in a way that it's gonna have a higher level of prediction of the result. I mean, the machine will adjust the weight and will try to temper that to some extent, but you can still, in the way you are presenting the information to the machine learning, introduce bias in what's going to be the output result. So it is a complex machine, and the main challenge is that it's very difficult to understand how it's reaching the result. And sometimes it can be good, and sometimes it's not. And we've seen in many situations, more situation where ML failed to solve a problem rather than where ML was actually solving the problem. So it's a very good tool, and it has a lot of application, but it's definitely not a magic wand that can solve everything.
Oh, I can imagine all the debugging you've had along the way, going, hang on, that doesn't seem right. But getting to the point that it's launched and ready for the market. Firstly, congratulations, because that is a lot of, I'm sure you guys have been through going, hang on, what happened here? But I mean, you touched on something earlier, and, when we were racing, I would say to my wife, this guy's fallen in love, or he's falling in love, he's going to be a threat. and then you'd have the one going through, bad relationship, and it doesn't matter how fit you are, it's going to, and that emotional, that the human element of emotion, I think will be the last area that AI can kind of really grasp, and it'll figure that out though. I think the more that you can work with your AI tool, the more it's going to understand you and your emotions, and it'll start being better at predicting. But it's still a fascinating. I do have a question. Where does HumanGo get its data from? Is it collected all from your original inputs? So when it comes to coaching and giving the right training plans, is it just coming from within your own data, or is it accessing the entire, web?
So at the moment, it's actually using your own data. So we are detecting pattern and understand from your data. So what seems to be the right profile for you, and that's why sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah.
I love what one of my friends told me this story. If you try to build a machine learning engine that's going to predict what's going to be the number at the roulette, and try to predict that with 99% chance of success, you're probably going to fail. I mean, you're going to create a machine learning that will just hallucinate all the time and produce completely crap results. But if you try to build now an engine that is capable of predicting with 51% what's going to be the right number, you can define a strategy that can leverage that, and you still make you a billionaire. Mm. And that's very important, because in the way you're framing the problem, you can either get good enough results that will be consistent enough that you can lead to a path that is directionally right, versus trying to be too precise and fail, because then all these challenges that I described in the machine learning will get in the way. And what you think is a fantastic prediction engine is actually a fantastic randomizer producing random results. So that's where we've been trying to add complexity where it makes sense, but also trying to be simple enough so we can rely with a good level of accuracy on what's going to be the outcome. So I prefer to have directionally right and be able to derive a strategy from that than trying to be very exact, but most of the time wrong.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm curious. We've been talking a lot about the tech and AI. How is HumanGo kind of striking a balance between tech and the human touch? I think that's sort of a debate that's ongoing here. Have you found, how are you able to incorporate the human experience as well as the tech?
Yeah, that's a very essential aspect. So first, I would like to take that opportunity to clarify one thing that might not have come across so clearly so far, is that the way we build the engine, it's really to help at scale the people to train, but it's also designed in a way that it can be a coach assistant for the coach. Mm-hmm. Because in the relationship with your coach, I mean, the human element is essential. I want my coach to motivate me. I want my coach to inspire me. I want my coach to be able to help me going over a difficult time and bounce back. All of that is not something that the AI will do, or at least not for another while. Mm-hmm. So this relationship with your coach is actually something we believe that this kind of technology will help reinforcing rather than impacting in a negative way. So fair enough. Maybe a grumpy coach crunching data somewhere in a remote place that you never hear from will probably be replaced with this kind of tool. But most of the coaches are actually engaging in a relationship with their athletes. And that's where we believe that there will be this value. So striking the balance, this was an essential element to think, the AI allows more people to be able to get in the sport. But when you get to the next level, you need the support of a real coach And that's why we wanted to include that part of the solution that we are building.
Brilliant.
The other dimension is, really something that was very important for me at the beginning was I hated when people were telling me, I cannot train with you because I have my plan and I need to do this training and we cannot go on a run or a bike together. And I was feeling that, that's something that we should be able to do better. We should be able to find a way that we can go on a training together and the rest of your plan will adjust based on that. So that's also something that we built in the platform, accounting for, as I said, what you've done and what you're planning to do. So you can go out. So for teams, let's say, that means that you can be part of a team or club. You can go with the team training workout on Tuesday and Thursday, and the rest of your plan will be adjusted accounting for that.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's really important we want people to go together. We want people to be together. That's the value that we have to promote in the future is human connection. And that is something that we really need to use technology to avoid spending time on mundane tasks that can be solved by technology and bring the human connection and the human touch at the forefront, because that's what's going to help us moving in the right direction as a person, as an athlete, as a society.
Well said, mate. And to, we both said at the top of this show how much we both started the sport of triathlon and Ironman because of the people, and to be building a tool that works in a way that's trying to bring people together is, fantastic, mate. Well done. Very, very cool. I want to bring up your new relationship with Human Powered Health. Firstly, congratulations. That's massive. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on what that looks like and how you think that's going to sort of shape the future of HumanGo.
Yeah, so we're super excited with that aspect. But I would like to add something that maybe will explain a little bit how much of an alignment there is. So when I started with sport. I described my journey. I went really into all this ultra distance and Ironman, and I loved it for the friendship and so on. But there was another dimension that came in during that journey. And so my dad was born in 1924. And in 42, he joined the French battalion to fight the Nazi alongside the American army. So wow. he has seen a lot in his life. And when he was 80, we were still playing tennis. And fair enough, I admitted I was not a great player, but he was still giving me a hard time playing on tennis. And at 89, we went skiing together. Wow. And when in 92, we visited London together and we were just walking for hours on end. In 97, he was still spinning on his bike 1 hour a day.
Wow.
Getting to 99 this year and is slowing down quite a bit now. But it gave me this view that besides the luck at the genetic lottery, he always took good care of himself. And exercise was omnipresent in his life. And that really started to fascinate me in terms of what longevity can do and more specifically health span. So the mission of HumanGo, maybe from the early days, which was really helping athletes to train, morphed into how can I help people to be healthier? How can I help people to be metabolically fit? Mm. And that's where the connection with Human Powered Health is there, because when we met them, it was quite incredible. I mean, they described their mission and vision, and we described our mission and vision, and it was the same. It's how can I help people to be metabolically healthy? That's ultimately the goal that we have. How we can take care of the 50 million plus Americans that are sick or pre-sickness, and that will wait until they are completely sick to start taking drugs to fix their problem. And they will never fix their problem, obviously, as we all know. Where we can take that and from early age start putting them on the right track through exercise, recovery, nutrition, mental well-being, and help people to feel better. And as a result, just necessarily they will become better people, and that will have a huge impact on society at large. So that's really the mission, and that's where we align with HPH. So when HPH, Human Powered Health, offered to take over the control of HumanGo, I really saw that fantastic opportunity with people like-minded, with the same aspiration, to join forces and be able to build something that will now grow. So we're super excited. It's a big step in the milestone in the journey of a startup, but it is so much more than bringing funding. Is bringing the network, the vision, the aspiration of all these people who are on the same mission as us, and joining forces there. So it's
absolutely
fantastic.
Brilliant. I'm super excited for you, mate. Massive congrats, because I know there's been a lot of work over the last 5 years to get to this point, and to have them, like you said, it's not just the funding, but to have people on board with the same passion, the same mission, the same vision. That's fantastic. Your team, behind every great product's a passionate team. Who have been some of the key team members that you've got at HumanGo? Because, I know Lance Watson has been an advisor. He's an old friend of mine, and he, we worked together for many years. Well, about 20 years ago now. Scott Snitspan, who was the head of high performance for USA Triathlon there for a while. You've got a pretty outstanding team behind you.
Yeah, I got blessed on that as I really along the path of trying this story, building that story and that journey. I really met great people. I mean, on the coach side, there are some famous names, as you mentioned. Lance and Scott definitely was so helpful to have them guiding us and advising us on the path and direction. But we also have our head coaches on the triathlon and cycling with Ray Harris and Pat Bryan, who have been really fantastic, really throwing themselves in the technology, getting exposed to things that they probably didn't dream of.
Yes, I love it. Yes,
and really try to bridge the gap between what they know from a coaching science and a coaching art. This relationship with people, and how can we strike the right balance, as you asked, to keep the human touch while bringing technology to help people. So that has been really amazing. I mean, the development team, they're all passionate with the product, from Trace, who've been really working on the AI planner as a big piece of it. I mean, Abhijit joined us in 19 and still loyal part of the team. I mean, and then Gretel, who's been really my partner, supporting me in the ups and downs of the startup, and helped me keeping faith, because that's the toughest part.
Yes. Keep pushing him back in the ring. Get back in.
Coaster. And so she's throwing herself and her passion into the mission to work on our growth and expose HumanGo to all the people who can benefit.
Mate, I'm so excited for you guys. I really am. I think everybody listening, you got to go download HumanGo.AI. Go check it out. It's absolutely fantastic. But before we finish up, I'd love to finish each episode with a final 3 questions. And so I'm going to throw them out to you, and I'd love to just get your thoughts. So the first one, if you could travel back in time, back to being 16, 17, 18, somewhere there, what advice would you give yourself?
So if I can go back to 12, if you allow me to tweak
even further.
Your time machine, I will tell my 12 years old to get in the pool and learn how to swim, because when you're trying to do that at 40, it sucks.
Oh, mate, when you said you started the sport, that's why I asked you. And I'm like, how old were you? Hang on. My father-in-law did that. My father-in-law taught himself to swim at 45, and he's now 82 and still doing triathlons and loves it dearly. And so, it's hard, mate, isn't it? The swimming one. I love it.
That's a really tough one.
Oh, you're too funny. I love it. All right, next one. If you could share a meal with any 3 personalities, past or present, who would it be and why? Non-family, but it can be living or dead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that the first one, I will have a dinner with Yuval Harari. And that, I mean, if you don't know him, that's he's an intellectual and historian who spent a large part of his time exploring where we're coming from. A great book, Homo Sapiens, and where we are going, and how technology, amongst other things, will impact our future.
Wow.
And this guy, I mean, I found him fascinating, the honesty and that he is using to approach all of that, and the openness, and that really represents my maybe early part in life, where I was more focused on the intellectual side of things.
What was his name again, Eric? How do you pronounce
Yuval Harari.
Yuval Harari.
Harari.
Okay.
And
thanks.
I mean, he's a great person. I will highly recommend 21 Lessons for the 21st Century as a great book.
Perfect.
The second one, that will be Peter Attia. And I really, when I started respecting my body and starting looking at movement, and then I went into nutrition, recovery, I read so many things. I fall in love with his podcast and what he's doing there. And I think he's really embodying again here an intellectual honesty, a scientific approach, and leaving aside the dogma and how to have a pragmatic approach to live a better life. I think his work's fantastic. His book is a great book that I will also recommend to everyone to read. So I would love to have a chance to have a dinner with Peter.
I'm going to interrupt here. You have to be so close to. You guys are in the same field. Actually, one of my very closest friends, no relationship, and he's been on this show, Dr. Luke Bennett. Looks like he's potentially going to start working with Peter later this year on some projects. And I think what you're doing at HumanGo and what Peter Attia is doing, there's so many crossovers. That'd be fast. I think that dinner is going to be more like a dinner going, all right, how do we work together on? So I think you put it out in the universe. I'm helping spread it out further. So
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's make it happen, mate. And all right, one more. You got one more.
One more. So the one more will be the spiritual side. So I would like to have dinner with the Dalai Lama. And I think he's also coming with a very scientific approach and a certain element of curiosity and simplicity that are truly inspirational. So I'm a great fan. I read most of his book as well. And I think is a source of inspiration. That's probably a longer stretch.
Yeah, no,
to have a dinner with the Dalai Lama, and he probably has many other things to deal with. Well, it's a dream. So,
well, hopefully we can make it a long dinner too. We'll start at midday, so you have plenty of time because there's a lot to unpack with those three. And, that's a great dinner, mate. I love it. All right, final one. If we fast forward 5 years. Where do you sort of envision yourself, first and foremost, and then, HumanGo?
Yeah, so one thing that I learned through that journey is to try to spend most of my time projecting in the present rather than in the future.
I like that.
And for the first time in my life, I will say, since I started that journey, I'm right there where I would like to be. Before it was always projecting and trying, maybe I should do this, I should do that, or maybe in 5 years I can be this, I can be that. But now it's just that I'm enjoying where I am today. And I think that's what I learned. I mean, trying to do my best for what I'm doing right now is just going to put me on a path that I don't know what it is, but I will trust life to make it an interesting one. So
I love that.
I will escape that question in a way. I would like in 5 years to be in the present, being the present in 5 years, not the present of today. And I just don't know what it is, and I'm okay with that.
You know what's fascinating about that answer, and I love it, is every morning I practice gratitude. I talk about it a lot on the podcast, and it's very simple, but I spend 5 minutes on gratitude, and then I always spend another minute or two on sort of visions and manifesting visions, and I go to vision 5 years, and when I vision it, I say, okay, it's 2028. and I'm Greg Bennett of 2028, and what does it look like? And I quite often step back going, I'm really thrilled to be present where I am today. And if 5 years from now can even look similar to today, I'm in a good place. And it's kind of like this, I've always had big ambitions and striving to be the biggest, best athlete in the world, or the best podcaster, or the biggest tech company, and you get to the point of going, actually, all I want is control of my time. I want to own my time more than anything else, because I realize that's the number one commodity in the world. It's not money, it's not fame, it's not anything, it's time. And then I want my health and my family. And when you start, and if I've already got those now, you start to go, all of a sudden my goals change dramatically.
So true.
Yeah,
so true.
So I love your honesty on that one, because I think you and I are very much on the same page. Hey, are you up for finishing with some rapid fire questions? Test those fast twitch fibers of yours?
Let's give it a try.
All right, here we go. This is going to push the clock back. First job. Can you remember your first job?
Yes, my first job, I was working on an open market, helping my uncle in Switzerland and serving customers with salad and peach, and it was a fantastic experience.
Oh, good man. I love it. Early bird or night owl?
Definitely night owl.
Really?
I wake up in the middle of the night where all my energy is there.
Oh, mate.
I try to be early bird, but
not great for the early morning swim squads. All right, here we go. Favorite book you've read this year? You sound like you're a book reader, but...
Oh, now you're putting a challenge with this year.
No, you don't have to do this year. You can do any book.
No, that's okay. I will say that going on the spiritual path, why Buddhism is true, which is a very non-religious approach of Buddhism, looking at how scientific progress are showing that some of the fundamental concepts in Buddhism are actually very interesting approach of how people can feel better with themselves. So I love the book. I really love the book. It was a big moment for me. And it's, again, I'm just warning everybody, it's not really about religion. It's really about just looking at some of the practice in Buddhism and how they have been correlated with science.
Oh, I love that. I'll go check it out. All right, an easy one. What decade of music is the best?
You picked the wrong guy to ask that question. I will go back in time and I will say Zigan Jazz is probably my favorite. So that's going to probably put us in the 60s.
Nice.
Where it was very live.
I love it, mate. I think you're one of my first guests that's picked the 60s, but I love the 60s. So well done. All right. One tech gadget you can't live without.
One tech gadget. I really get fond of my wearing, I have to say. It has been really helping, although sometimes it's feeling weird, but most of the time it's really helping me to stay on track and listen to my body. So, and HumanGo is reading those data, by the way, so I can read that through.
Perfect. I love it. All right, greatest movie of all time.
Wow.
That's a tough one.
Okay. I will throw Brazil from Terry Gilliam. So it was this dystopia. The movie was from the 80s, and it was describing this dystopia where a guy was basically living in his dream. And I think it's an interesting, contrast, because I'm so much in technology, and this one is describing a world where technology is both very, very old style, but at the same time very frightening. And I think that we just have to keep our eyes open. I mean, ultimately, what we need to do is to continue to evolve as an individual and as a species in the right path, and not just try to just make things easier with technology. Easy is not always the right answer. Sometimes it is not aligned with our core values.
No, good point. I like that. All right, 2 most used apps on your phone besides HumanGo.
I will definitely say WhatsApp is going to come already. So
Communication.
trying to connect with people, obviously.
Yeah.
And I am ashamed to say that I'm addicted to the news feed. So Google News is probably one of the most used app on my phone. And that's
There you go.
Sometimes I think I need to grow out of it, but
no, you know what? I turned off the news about 20 years ago, but now I just I subscribe to a couple of finance emails in the morning or whatever, and I kind of get my news through finance in a way that now I don't feel like I'm getting swayed by anybody. I'm just getting pure facts of where's the money going. That's how I learn my news.
It's a good one.
Yeah. All right, last question. If you weren't in the tech industry, what would you be doing?
My dream was to be a mountain guide.
Nice. Very cool.
Guiding people. I really tried at some point. I even started the training for it, but just never really happened. So
yeah. Well, mate, Eric, this has been just an absolute pleasure getting to know you, getting to discuss HumanGo and the technology all around that, and especially AI and your insights onto that. So I truly appreciate you coming on the show and just sharing so much of your wisdom and knowledge. I'm truly excited for where you're going with HumanGo. I think it's very exciting, and having somebody like Human Powered Health behind you, I think it's tremendous to see. So, mate, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg.
All right. For everybody listening, you can find all the show notes at bennettendurance.com/media. And please go check out HumanGo.AI. You can download that that's on Apple and Google, Android, right?
Correct, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
It's also on the web if you want to.
Oh, it's on the web too.
On a browser, on your computer, you can also do that at app.humango.ai.
Perfect. That'll all be in the show notes as well. But Eric, thanks again, mate. Stay on the line. I truly appreciate you, buddy.